Welcome to the Lady Up America podcast. I'm Diane Canada, your host. I'm so glad you're here today. Thanks for tuning in. Ladies, this is part 2 of my coverage of the Democrat National Convention this week. We could talk about a lot of things. There's a lot going on that is just so infuriating. But what I want to do today is I want to break apart Michelle Obama's speech. We're going to be looking at it line by line pretty much because she is an amazing orator, an amazing inspirational speaker. And one of the things I always say about the Obamas is they are masterful spin doctors, absolutely masterful. So what I want to do is I want to take apart the speech and I want to show you what I mean. We cannot be deceived by this speech that was so eloquently delivered. I'll give her that. You got to hand it to them. But let's break it apart and let's look at all of the deception that lies in the threads of this speech today. Be right back.
Around this town, around this town, victory on the battleground, we claim it now. Lady up, lady up. Lady up, lady up.
All right, ladies. So I'm going to just start at the beginning of this and we're going to go through. I've got some notes here. I just want to go through and break this apart line by line almost, not verbatim, but the high points from this speech and break it down because I want you to see the level of deception that is laced throughout it. I say again that the Obamas are amazing speakers. They have the ability to come off so sincere. The cadence and the way they deliver a line is masterful. It is. I mean, kudos, bravo, standing ovation to them on that. But what's so dangerous about it is that it is full of deception. It is full of taking the phrases and the ideals that we hold so dear and twisting them to fit the narrative that they are trying to shove down our throats. They were endorsing Kamala. Michelle Obama spoke first and then Barack came up after that and kind of underlined a lot of what she said. But we have to know what the other side is getting fed so that we can better understand how to approach these tough conversations. If we don't understand how they're being seduced and won by the other side, by the Obamas, by the Clintons, by Kamala and her team, if we don't understand what's going on there, then how are we possibly going to be able to influence in these conversations? So even though it is very painful, very painful for me to sit through these, we have to do it. Like I have to do it in order to come to you each day and help guide you. You have to do it. We have to understand what's going on in the enemy camp. All right. So let's take a look. And I want to just say real quick too, before I go in, that I am not trying to say that half the country is our enemy. I want to make that clear. There are a handful of elites like the Obamas, like the Clintons, that are literally spearheading this deceptive operation. And what has happened is good, well-meaning people are being seduced by it. Okay, so let's just break it down. I mean, her speech was very seductive. So let's just take a look. So first thing she started out with is she was talking about the contagious power of hope, how hope is making a comeback in our country. She says that she sees that we're on the cusp of a brighter day. Okay. Let's just look at that for a second. They had no hope in Joe Biden, none whatsoever. And Biden and Harris have served together side by side for the last 3.5 years. They literally ousted him from the party. So he was kind of the golden child. They've been protecting him and insulating him, even though he has been in serious cognitive decline. They have been protecting him and allowing him to kind of be the weekend at Bernie's face of the Democrat Party, while the people behind him have been pushing him forward. Now, this administration has brought no hope to our country. If anything, just big dark clouds. They literally took what was working so well under Trump's policies, dismantled them, and literally at this point in our country have created mass chaos, mass inflation, mass unrest around the world. So much crime in our city streets, open borders, governments emptying out their jails and their prisons into our country. people that have been killed, drugs coming across in just waves. There, the sex trafficking and all that is, I mean, what is hopeful about 4 more years of this? I'm going to try to not get stuck each part because we'll be here all day, but let me just kind of go through and hit some of these highlights. They talked about how all people have value. She talked about how anyone can succeed if given an opportunity. She said that her mom was suspicious of people taking more than their fair share, that she believed if you did unto others and loved your neighbor and worked and scraped and sacrificed, that it would pay off, if not for you, then for your children and your grandchildren. Those values being passed on through family farms, factory towns, tree-lined streets, crowded tenements, prayer groups, National Guard units, and social studies classrooms. Oh my goodness. Where do I even start in that one? Okay. First of all, they are not about equal opportunity. They're about equal outcomes. So everybody should get the same regardless of what they put into it. They're not a party of blood, sweat, and tears when she talks about how you can work and scrape and sacrifice. That is the polar opposite of what these policies mandate. They're talking about mass distribution of wealth, forgiving student loans, not having to pay off your loans, not having to come up with a down payment for a house. No, just all that given to you. Where is the scrape and the sacrifice and the work ethic in any of that? You have to look at what they do, not what they say. They are masterful spin doctors, masterful. When they talk about our values being passed down through family farms and through tree-lined streets and factory towns, they've shut so many of those down. Guys, family farms now, so many of them have struggled. The farmers have gotten a bad deal from administrations like this one. And we've talked about factory towns. J.D. Vance came from a town that when the factories are sent overseas, and these factory towns that were once booming become ghost towns. And we see this all across America when the jobs are not here, but they're being farmed out to countries where they can get cheaper labor and all kinds of big breaks. How is that? We don't see any of that under this administration. When they talk about scraping and sacrificing, and that it would pay off, if not for you, for your children and your grandchildren. Guys, this is legacy that we're talking about. They are not, none of their policies uphold any of that. Ours do. The Republican parties do. We talk about meritocracy, earning the things that you get, not just being handed a government check. Look at the doublespeak, you guys. Just look at this. She also brought comparisons to, let me just say one more thing too about the last part of that, how she talks about tree-lined streets, that the values are passed down on these tree-lined streets. Those are subdivisions. She's talking about suburbs. They are doing everything in their power to make it so difficult for people to buy a home. What they want is they want mass population in inner cities. They really are not for subdivisions. They don't want people in subdivisions. I saw that here in Nashville. The property tax increase that happened here. I'll just give you an example. A small couple came to me when our mayor here in 2020 was increasing the taxes, the property taxes, to a point where it was going to make people on fixed incomes, it's going to make it impossible for them to stay in their homes and afford their homes. And what they want to do is a lot of these homes sit on a half acre or an acre, maybe a couple acres. They want to do away with that. They want to basically force people out of that so that then they can put in multi-use properties. They can get a lot more people in that same space, put up these what we call tall skinnies, or put up multi-use buildings, like where they have businesses on the bottom and people live above, apartments, condos, all these. They want to cram people in to these areas because it brings more profit. And also, doing like electric cars and things like that won't go as far. They want people to kind of walk to places and all that. They're trying to literally do away with people having home ownership. Now, you're going to say, well, what if she's trying to give people $25,000 to put down on a home so they can own their own home? You guys don't understand how that's all going to play out. Look at what happened in 2008 when people who bought homes and couldn't really afford them. Look at what happened to our country. We had a massive recession, very close to a depression. We had mass foreclosures. All these kinds of things happen when people can't maintain. They've already got the interest rates so high. And what's going to happen is if they put this law forward where people then can have $25,000 down on a house, then the price of that house is going to go up. And now people are going to be even less able to afford it. It's going to end up in the hands of foreclosures and in the hands of big banks. And we're going to have, it is a recipe for disaster. So then Michelle went into comparing Kamala's upbringing to hers, talking about how they both grew up, with all of these values passed down from their mothers. Michelle referenced the loss of her mother recently in Chicago, and then just started talking about the values that were passed down between their two mothers, how similar they were. She then talked about Kamala's accomplishments in holding lawbreakers accountable and strengthening the rule of law. You guys, Kamala Harris was known in California as a prosecutor and then as an attorney general there. She was known for incarcerating thousands of Black people for marijuana possession, while joking about how she smokes marijuana and thinks it should be legalized. And as far as upholding the rule of law, during the 2020 riots, the BLM riots that were going on, she was talking about defunding the police. And she also set up a fund, I mentioned this yesterday, where they could raise bail money for the protesters, the people who were burning down the city. And this is someone who has opened our border. On her watch, she was supposed to be overseeing the border under the Biden team. She and Biden opened up our southern border wide open. They will tell you it's not wide open. It is absolutely wide open. What they're doing, they will also say that there was a bipartisan bill that Trump squashed in Congress that would have secured our border. Let's look at that for a minute. That is not what happened. Again, the spin doctors at work. What happened when Trump was in office? He had policies in place that reduced the crossings at the southern border to record lows. He had something called Remain in Mexico, which basically meant if you're coming to the United States and you're seeking asylum because maybe you're running from a tyrannical government or you are fearful for your family's life, you're coming here for real legitimate reasons, they want you to remain in Mexico until your asylum case is heard. That way, you're not just deployed into our country, into the interior of our country, which is what's happening now. At the southern border now, the Biden-Harris team, what they've done is when they were saying we need more help at the border and all that, what they're doing is they're processing these illegal people through more quickly, getting more and more and more of them processed in quickly and releasing them into the interior of our country with no vetting. Guys, it is such a spin what they have done. So what Trump was saying on that bipartisan bill, that it was not that he was trying to not secure our border, trying to encourage the representatives and the senators to not go along with securing the border. That's not it at all. They had all these things baked into this bill that was going to make even more illegals, make it quicker to release them into the interior of our country. What's happening right now is they come across in droves and they are barely I can't even say processed through. ICE is so overwhelmed at the border. So what's happening is they're coming through so quickly. Many of them don't even have ID or they have fake ID. Let's say they're coming from, Iran or another country that we would normally have we would be very, very careful to not let them in. What they do is they go to Venezuela and they get a fake ID and then they come in, if they get an ID at all. Many of them are traveling without them. So we have no idea who these people are. We have no idea if their documentation is real. And they're basically just checking them off on a list, then putting them on buses or on planes, and then deploying them into our cities and towns, waiting asylum. With the kids will come through. A lot of them, if they're unaccompanied minors, if they make it, God bless them, they're coming across and maybe they have a name and they say, I'm supposed to go see John Smith in Minneapolis. They'll put them on a bus to go see them. Well, that could be a pedophile. It could be a trafficker that's arranged ahead of time. They tell the ICE agents that that's their uncle or something, and they deliver them right into the hands of the people who are likely going to traffic them or abuse them. Guys, it is. So what they're doing, what Biden and Harris are doing is they wanted to process these people faster, get more and more and more of them in the country faster. And now what they want them to do is be able to have driver's licenses, to be able to vote, to be able to eat up all of our resources that we've paid our hard-earned money into through Social Security and taxes. They want them to be able to benefit from all of that. Guys, it is anything but her defense of the rule of law. The very first job of government is to secure our country, to keep us safe. And we are anything but safe now. We have, last count, I thought it was 99 people on the terrorist watch list that they've identified and caught. That's not even counting the gotaways, the people that we don't even know that are here. And the proof of it is in the violent crime that we're seeing. We're seeing so much crime, people raping and killing children. Lake and Riley, we have drivers now, taxi drivers. I saw a man yesterday beating a woman on the side of the road and trying to throw her into traffic. I mean, it's horrific what's happening here. I've shared the story before that I was a victim of a hit and run somebody ran me down with a truck who was here from Honduras illegally and running from the scene because he was scared he'd be deported if he was caught. Guys, people who break our laws to get here break further laws once they're here. And a lot of these people, like I said, are very violent. So do not hand me any kind of narrative that Kamala Harris is all about the rule of law and protecting our people and holding lawbreakers accountable. Please. That she's all about better wages and cheaper pharmacy bills and childcare and elder care. It's like she just sounds like a saint when you hear it out of the mouth of Michelle Obama. Michelle said that she's one of the most qualified and dignified people ever to run for office, that her story is our story. It's my story and your story. No, her story is not my story, not by a long shot. She also said, no one has a monopoly on what it means to be an American. No one. In America, we don't, what is that? What does a statement like that even mean? Do you see how it comes off so noble, but yet you don't even know what it means? Nobody has a monopoly on what it is to be an American. What does that even mean? Then she starts going into the Trump references. She says, most of us will never be given the grace of failing forward. All of us fail forward. When you fail, you learn, and then you back up and you try to not make that mistake again. That's how you learn. This is what life is. So we are all given the grace to fail forward. I used to teach on this a lot when I taught in the prisons. I would teach women that, just because you have failed at a job or at a profession, at a business maybe you tried to create or something, it doesn't mean that you are a failure. Maybe the project failed or the job failed or whatever, but it doesn't make you a failure. And there's a great book out there called Failing Forward. That's how we learn. She talked about how there, in the Trump references, that the affirmative action of generational wealth is not usually given. Affirmative action of generational wealth. She said that if we bankrupt a business or choke in a crisis, we don't get a second, third, and fourth and fifth chance. That if things don't go our way, we don't have the luxury of whining or cheating others to get further ahead. Okay, I could park right here for like an hour. First of all, generational wealth it doesn't happen for every family, but it's what we aspire to. We buy a home, we hope to leave it to our children. We open a business and we hope to pass it down to our children. These are things that's just all part of the American dream. Not every child's going to want it, all that, but it's something that we aspire to as Americans. So everyone is hopeful of that. And when you've got people who have lived in abject poverty for many, many years, and they're kind of stuck in that loop of a poverty mindset, it's very difficult for them to break out of that. But people like Dr. Ben Carson, like Dr. Carol Swain, they can tell you all about that. And really, it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't like somebody came and rescued them out of it. All it was a mentor or two that planted a seed that they could do better. This is what we do in America. And if people are willing actually to work for it and sacrifice and put in the work ethic, then they can achieve it. But when we keep people in a mindset of just accepting a government check, it's like a loop, right? It's like the Truman Show. They just get up every day and that's the loop that they stay in, and they continue to elect the very people that are keeping them on that mental plantation instead of planting seeds that they're capable of better. So when she gets up and out of one side of her mouth, she's saying with blood, sweat, tears, all of this, anyone can achieve this. And then in the next one, she talks about how oppressed they are. It's just, it's a complete disconnect. She talked about how if you bankrupt a business or all of that, you don't get a second, third, and fourth chance. I just had an episode the other day with my friend Gigi Butler. She founded Gigi's Cupcakes, and she and I have been serial entrepreneurs our whole lives. And we were talking about that. We were talking about how, again, if you fail, if a business fails or something fails, you can always reinvent yourself. That's the beauty of America. Y'all, in the Lee Greenwood song, if tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars to be living here today, where this flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. Remember that song? That's what we do in America. We get up, dust ourselves off, and we go again. That's what we do. So we all have that chance. So what is she talking about? She said that we don't get to change the rules so that we always win. Okay. America has a constitution and very specific rules. Like, for instance, the Supreme Court. They don't like what's coming out of the Supreme Court. They don't like Roe v. Wade being overturned. They don't like these things happening. So what do they want to do next? Change the rules. They want to stack the Supreme Court. They want to expand it so they can put more liberal judges on it and get their way. When we talk about if they don't like the way that the election is playing out, if they don't like the fact that most people in this country vote Republican, then they're going to open up the borders and try to bring all of these illegals in and give them the right to vote when they're not even citizens. They have not gone through the naturalization process, the assimilation process, the citizenship process to earn that right to become an American citizen, to understand what our values are, and to take a civics test and to actually assimilate to our culture. Nope. They just want to have anybody come over from any country and then just give them the right to vote. Do you know what people went through to get the right to vote in our country? I mean, this is a privilege that is reserved for Americans, and they just want to give it to illegal aliens to remain in power. So when they say things like we don't get to change the rules just so we always win, that's exactly what they do. Exactly what they do. There are, oh my gosh, again, I could park there for a while. I need to keep moving. Y'all, I got 4 more pages here. I'm going to try to get through it quickly. I got like 8 minutes left. You have to look at what they do, not what they say. She says, if we see a mountain, we don't expect there to be a golden escalator waiting to take us to the top. We put our heads down, we get to work in America, and we do something. Right. Right. Again, references to Trump. Then she starts going into Kamala and starts describing Kamala in this way: her steel of a spine, her steadiness of her upbringing. What does that even mean? Honesty of her example. Really? Honesty? How has she deceived the American people the last 3.5 years by going along with the charade that Biden was not cognitively declining? That was honest. She says, only Kamala understands the unseen labor and the unwavering commitment that has always made America great. Oh my goodness. She said, Trump tries to make people fear us. He's threatened by the existence of 2 hardworking, highly educated, successful people who happen to be Black, she says. She's talking about her and Barack. She says, who's going to tell him that the job he is currently seeking might be one of those Black jobs? So again, a reference when Trump is talking about all of these illegals coming into our country, Black people and Hispanic people, not all of them. There are many highly educated ones out there that hold different kinds of jobs, more professional jobs. But a large majority of our country, we do have Blacks and Hispanics that hold jobs that are more blue collar jobs. They just are. And because of that, now because of their complaints. They're the ones complaining directly that these illegals that are coming here are taking their jobs. So it's making it hard for them to feed their families. This is where they try to trap him. They're always trying to trap him in this. It's just so, the race baiting and the division is like always, you can always count on the Obamas for that. And yet they come in and talk about how they want to wrest that, how they want to get away with that. Again, you've got to look at what they do, not what they say. She talks about how he's just a con man, the same old con, doubling down on ugly, misogynistic, racist lies as a substitute for real ideas and solutions that'll make people's lives better. Okay, so get ready for this. She talks about how Trump wants to cut our health care. No, that's not true. He does not want to cut our health care. Medicaid and Medicare for all is socialized medicine, and he is not for that. I talk about this a lot. I had a woman who grew up in Marxist Romania, and she talked about socialized healthcare. When we do away with free markets and the government takes over things, you have it all just basically goes to pot. She said, Daniela told me that under socialized medicine, that a public bathroom at a gas station is cleaner than the hospitals. She said that once you pass a certain age, like 65, 70 years old, you're no longer seen as a contributor to society, so you're more of a drain. So if you're standing in your living room and you start to have a heart attack, you call 911, the ambulance is not coming. These are the kinds of things that Trump is against, okay, that we are against 100%. So when we talk about Medicare for all and all of that, that is not good for America, not by any stretch of the imagination. She says that Trump wants to take away freedom to control our bodies. Okay, I talked about that a lot yesterday. I won't go back into that, but go back and listen to yesterday if you haven't yet. I really dug deep into that. Shutting down the Department of Education and banning our books. Michelle Obama says that this is what Trump wants to do. Let's unpack that for a second. The Department of Education has been one of the most destructive forces for the education of our children in a few ways. Number one, the education of our children should have never been centralized under a federal umbrella. Never. That should be left to the states and to the counties on how they want their schools run. The U.S. government gives, when they have that Department of Education, they have money that they give to the schools, but that money comes with a cost. That money comes with strings attached. It means you have to implement our curriculum. You have to abide by our testing standards. You have to implement things that we as parents don't want in our schools. When we're indoctrinating our kids rather than educating them, this is what's trickling out of the federal Department of Education. And this is what Trump wants to shut down. Banning our books. Ladies, I have put my hands on numerous books that are in the libraries and in the classrooms of our children that are straight up porn. They're straight up cartoon porn. And they're indoctrinating our kids. There's one book that I saw that's called This Is Normal. And it would shock you the positions, the sexual positions, and all these things that they're trying to normalize in these books, and trying to normalize sex to our children before their little brains are even at all remotely able to handle it or process it. And then trying to make it just seem like this is normal. It's normal for boys to have sex with boys. It's normal for adults to have sex with children. It's normal. The banning of books. And again, Trump has said this many, many times. It's not about banning books. It's about age appropriate books. So again, Michelle Obama up here talking about that, like we are the enemy trying to ban books. She says none of that will prepare our kids for the future. And then she said, okay, on the trans stuff, on them trying to plant seeds in our children's minds that maybe they're a boy if they're a girl, or are you sure you're a boy, or all this stuff. She says that we want to demonize our children for being who they are and loving who they love. So because we don't want some stranger or teacher or somebody in the Department of Education planting confusing seeds in the minds and the hearts of our children when they have no idea. They have absolutely no. First of all, every cell in your body is either male or female. You cannot identify as another gender. Even if you do identify as another gender, your body's working against, the biology in your body is completely working against you. But what they want to do is on one hand tell us that gender is a social construct, right? That it's something that as a society we are forcing kids into, but yet at the same time they want to tell us that they're trapped in the wrong body. So which is it? Is it a social construct or are children trapped in the wrong body? But you can't be both. But basically what's happening here is this trans movement trying to mutilate our children, have our children start trying to go through surgeries, operations to try and change their sexual identity without parental consent, because a parent has a problem with that, with you saying that you're not going to do that to my child. Then now that by Michelle Obama's definition, that is us demonizing our children for being who they are and loving who they love. So a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old who's now confused because this school has put these books in front of them and indoctrinated them and planted seeds in their little minds. Because of this now, if a parent stands up, then that somehow is demonizing the child. Do you see the deception in this? Do you see the dangerous deception in this? She said, none of this makes our lives any better. Instead, it only makes us look small when we're trying to prevent socialized medicine, when we're trying to prevent millions of babies being killed in the womb, when we're trying to shut down the Department of Education that's indoctrinating our kids. We're trying to, quote unquote, ban books that are completely inappropriate for our children's little eyes to see, that we don't have any intention of standing by and letting someone transition our kids, put them through surgeries or give them hormones without our consent. These are our children. When we have a problem with that, then it only makes us look small, she said. Going small is never the answer. It's the opposite of what we teach our kids. Going small is petty, unhealthy, and quite frankly, unpresidential. These are her words last night. I got to hand it to her, man. She is good. She is so good. She's saying, why would we accept this from anybody seeking the highest office? Why would we normalize that type of backward leadership? It demeans and cheapens our politics. It discourages good, big-hearted people from wanting to get involved at all. She says, America, our parents taught us better than that. We deserve better than that. That's why we've got to do everything possible in our power to elect the two good, big-hearted people, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So I got to tell you, everything inside of me as a Christian who genuinely loves the Lord and genuinely loves people and loves children, it is so hard to sit through this and see an entire auditorium of people cheering this on. The deception is off the charts, you guys. It's off the charts. The goal in Marxism is for children to be owned by the state. They belong to the state, not their parents. So do you see how this is pushing us further and further toward that Marxist agenda? In Marxism, God has to come out. There can be no higher authority. Then the state has to be, or the government has to be the one you depend on financially. So that has to come next. And then the last thing to go is children belonging to their parents. We are so close to Marxism. I can smell it. I can taste it. If we elect these two people, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, if we elect them, they will finish America off. The Marxism will be fully rooted now. And the freedom that we have known and loved in our country will be gone forever. This is not fear-mongering. This is not some conspiracy theory. This is the God's honest truth, and that's what I'm here to speak today to you, the truth. these flowery speeches that are full of, like I said, phrases and things that we've come to believe and fall in love with as Americans are being spun worse than a black widow's web. We cannot be lured into this and believe this. There is nothing about their policies that would lead to freedom, only to poverty. Socialism does not distribute wealth, it distributes poverty. It does not distribute freedom, it distributes slavery. Look at Venezuela, look at Cuba, look at every Marxist Romania, like I talked about before with Daniela. It never, ever ends well. So as Americans, Michelle Obama says that we can't afford to sit on our hands and wait to be called. We have the power to turn our country away from fear, division, and the smallness of the past, to pay forward the love, sweat, sacrifice of our mothers and fathers who came before us. I will take that last part of her speech and I will apply that to us 100%. We have the power to push this evil back, and we better do it for the sake of our children and our grandchildren. This is happening on our watch, ladies. Get my book, Lady Up America, and I walk you through how to push it back. I'm not asking you to buy my book because I'm trying to make money. I don't even make everything that comes into Lady Up America goes right back into Lady Up America to get the message out to more people. This is not about profit for me, not by any means. I want you to get the book. I want more and more women learning how to push this evil back so that we can save our country for our children and our grandchildren. But all of this stuff, these flowery words and everything that are coming off of the DNC stage could not be more deceptive. We have to wake up. We have to understand what we're dealing with. And then we have to learn how to push this evil back. So get the Lady Up America book, Training Christian Moms for the Toughest Spiritual Battleground of Our Lifetime. It's an easy read. You can get through it in a day, maybe two. I've got a study guide. You can get through that very quickly. And then you can get on that battlefield with the people you're already encountering, your children, your family members, your neighbors, your coworkers, the people that you're naturally seeing. You become a master at these conversations and learn how to push this evil back. Get people to question their own beliefs. When the Obamas get up and make a speech like this, I teach you how to plant incredible seeds in their minds that get them to question their own beliefs about what's going on, not argue with yours. It's a graceful approach to winning people to our values so that we can turn this around and God would heal our land. That's my prayer. All right. So since this is my last episode with you this week, let me go ahead and pray with you now. And then I'll let you go here. Father God, I thank you so very, very much that you are on the throne, Lord, that you allow certain things to happen so that we as a church will wake up and we will do our part, Lord, to take a stand for you. Teach us how, Lord. Show us how. I ask that every woman under the sound of my voice right now, Lord, would not have fear in the sense that it paralyzes and cripples her, but Lord, that this fear of what's happening in our country would motivate her to get on the field, to learn these techniques that you so graciously shared with me, and to start helping me push this evil back. Lord, I break it in the name of Jesus Christ over our children and our grandchildren. I break this evil. We push it back, Lord, in your name, in Jesus' name. Amen. This is no drill, you guys. This is not a drill. This is our chance. Choose wisely. Lady up. See you next week.
Lady up around this house. Lady up around